Jenny, thank you very much. I was anxious for a moment when you paused just momentarily after saying it was recently departed. I'm here. Now, this is a moment of potential anxiety, of course, because we're embarking on the first of the video conference links. And we think it's all going to work. You'll know that we had some trial runs before 9 o'clock. But before I do a formal introduction of John Hilber, I might just check with Jenny, when do we expect to see him actually come on the screen? In 2 minutes, right? Because I'll, at some stage, need to know not just whether we can hear him, but whether he can hear us, because that will be critical for whether or not we can have a question and answer session with him after his presentation. So I'll just introduce John very briefly. You'll have seen his notes in the program. He's been and remains a prominent and tireless researcher, teacher, consultant, and indeed advocate for issues around family planning, reproductive health, and the issues to do with population and the politically controversial issues of population control. You'll see that he's Emeritus Professor of Family Planning and Reproductive Health in University College London, Honorary Community Consultant in Reproductive Health in Oxford, and indeed consultant to the World Health Organizations and very many other national and international bodies. So, as I say, a tireless worker in this area, also reflected in his many publications, books, papers, and reports. Now, we see John on the left, not yet on the right. Right, presentation on the right, the person on the left. John, it would be interesting to know whether you can hear us. I wonder if you might just nod if you can hear us.
John, can you hear us? John, can you hear us? Good morning. Yes, we can hear you. Welcome to Australia.
Okay, now we can hear John. We're not sure whether he can hear us. We'll need to determine that.
I can hear you, but very poorly. There's a very bad line. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, we can hear you well, John. And it's Tony McMichael here. I've just been introducing you, and having done that formally, I was going to reflect on the fact that I also knew John personally when I was living and working in London, dare I say, in the later stages of last century. And I recall from conversations with him, his having been born and raised in Eastern Africa, and having had a long-standing, of course, interest in and now concern about issues to do with population growth, environmental pressures, social conditions in that part of the world, along with the rest of the world. So, John, if you're ready to go, it's a great pleasure to have you with us, and to ask you to speak to us now on your topic. We're going to hear from you on unremitting population growth. It can only end in tears. Thank you, and please go ahead.
Are you ready to start now?
Yes, we are.
You see, the problem is I'm only hearing every sixth word you're saying. But what I want to know very importantly is, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you quite well. Thank you.
Shall I start and hope you hear me all right?
Yes.
Okay. Let me start by saying how great it is to be with you folks. This is my 10th visit to Australia since 1981. This is my second virtual visit. But I have been here 8 times in the flesh as well. Now you see from my title, I say uncontraceptive sex is the greatest threat to all life on the planet. We're in the process of 6 great species extinction in geological time, and it's the first to be caused by one species. Next slide, please. Here we have the world, and it's my continent. I was born in Africa under those clouds there. in a place called Rwanda, Urundi at that time. I went to school in Uganda and Kenya. I have to say more about that later. The important thing now is to realize that 3/4 of this planet of ours is salt water, and half of the rest is either mountain or desert. Next slide, please. This is a poster of the Optimum Population Trust. It's like an estate agent's advert for planet Earth. And the important word is deceptively spacious. Note also that it goes on to say it's an historic property considering also to accommodate multiple occupancy. Gas heating throughout, no adjacent properties, planning permission expected for further extensive alterations. Next slide, please. We're very small. This is the world just a 250,000 miles away. Next slide. In fact, as you see it now, this is Earthrise from near the moon. And yes, this tiny blob of rock with so much teeming life on it of other species, we're in the process of damaging because there are too many of the one species, Homo sapiens. Next slide, please. The world is very overcrowded. And this picture, now you're seeing the bar chart, shows how population has grown. If any of you were born in the 60s, the middle 60s, you were then in a world with half as many people as there are now. Actually, it's a success story. It could have been far worse. Family size, which is technically known as total fertility rate, is down from about 5 in the mid-60s to about 2.7 now. The average family size. And the increment we're still getting is because of the bulge of numbers in the childbearing years, what is often referred to as a youthquake. Next slide, please. This, in fact, is the booklet that I produced called Youthquake. You can find it on the Optimum Population Trust website. And the important message here is that actually it's a teenage pregnancy problem everywhere. In Britain we have a teen problem of getting pregnant. I think you probably have in Oz and certainly in New Zealand as well. And too many young people are having unwanted conceptions, and actually they are the drivers of future population growth, because all the parents who are going to lead to at least a 50% increase in the population of the planet are alive today. Next slide, please. This may ring some bells, and you may be interested in the next slide too. Can we go to the next slide? Isn't that sad? I mean, it makes us laugh, but it's also rather sad. We are very much in a problem. Any of you who've been to Liverpool, that's a cartoon from a Liverpool paper. So why do we have all these unwanted pregnancies, particularly among teens? I think it's partly because of the fact that young men, as you saw there, are not targeted enough by sexualization education. But also because of the substance you see here in this young woman's situation. I think we could say that more pregnancies occur in the world by alcohol